Welcome to Dwellings, a podcast from the City of San Jose Housing Department, where we talk with thought leaders about ending homelessness, building affordable housing, and key housing policies. I'm Jeff Scott, and I'll be your host for Season 5 of Dwellings. On this episode, we talk with Stephanie Gutowski, Housing Policy and Planning Administrator for the Housing Department, and Renee Ayala, Analyst for the Housing Department's Grants Team. We'll discuss what the Grants Team is, how the community benefits from our grant programs, and who can apply for grants from the city. With that, welcome Stephanie and Renee. Why don't you begin by telling us a little bit about yourselves?
My name is Stephanie Gutowski. My formal title is Housing Policy and Planning Administrator. Essentially, I manage the grants management team here in housing. I've been with the Housing Department for about a little over 3 years, but prior to San Jose, I spent about 11 years in housing at the City of Santa Clara, and I will pass it off to Renee.
Good afternoon. This is Renee Ayala with the City of San Jose Housing Department Grants Management Team. I'm a grants management analyst too. I've been with the grants team for about over 4 years now, and also taking on some additional duties and helping with some of our compliance support.
Stephanie, can you just tell us, what does the grants team do? What is your function or your mission?
Yeah, so we're kind of the banker. We're the money guys, so we're super important. We've gone as high as managing over 200 million during COVID, and roughly we've been averaging about $100 million in agents, in agreements, and the agreements vary throughout. We have HUD grants, which are federal grants that we manage. We also do state grants and local grants. So that's like the Measure E, the tax credit grants, and any smaller grants, like a Google has some community outreach grants that we also manage. So anything that has to do with money and services falls under the grants management umbrella.
Great. And when you say 100 million is kind of become a typical year for you, you're talking about $100 million in new grants annually that you're dispersing?
Yeah, correct. So, and it's not just with one grant. So, one of our programs, we have a small public service program, Vivo, that's 50,000, but it can go all the way up to some of our homeless response division grants that can go up to multi-million-dollar grants. So it does vary on scope and the amount. But roughly when you add it all together, that's what it is annually so far. And in the grants management, it's a lot more than just doing the actual agreement, so which we are in charge of, but we're also the fiscal managers. So we manage all the interactions of paying invoices. And then there's a data collection, which HUD requires. And then there's also monitoring and compliance. So it's very complex. It's not just doing the agreement, but it involves different areas like that. And that falls under grants management.
All right. And when you say compliance, you're talking about making sure money is being spent by the grantee the way that it's intended to be?
Correct. So especially with HUD is very strict, obviously, with federal money. And so there's guidelines that HUD do, and we really do use the strict guidelines of HUD across the board. So much more so, we've applied those HUD standards through our state grants, our local grants, our community grants. And so we do monitor to make sure that the money is spent correctly for the intent that it was supposed to be spent. And we do that quarterly, but we also do an annual assessment as well. So we're pretty much on top of it.
And when we're talking about grants, you mentioned a few types of grants, Stephanie,
Mhm.
but can you or Renee give us a sense of some specific examples of grantees and what they're using some of the money for?
Yeah, so one of our flexible funds is CDBG, which is the Community Development Block Grant, and that comes from HUD. And we do what's called public service agreements. So for example, our senior nutrition program that we feed seniors, that comes from CDBG, or providing legal services for tenant rights and assistance, that is also a CDBG. We also have a really nice neighborhood engagement program with Somos Mayfair, and also the small community program called with Vivo. That's a neighborhood engagement program. So that's also under CDBG. But again, we also have these massive big grants for like emergency interim housing or motel vouchers. Those are all fall under the homeless response division. And so that's why there's a variety of grants and agreements that we manage.
We also have other grants that help support other services throughout the city for domestic violence support and
Yes.
shelters, as well to implement and support those in need of services and rental assistance as well. So that's one of our other areas of grants and contracts that we develop to support local agencies.
It sounds like the grants that you manage, that you oversee, your division, some of them are directly related to housing and homelessness, and some of them may be kind of tangentially related to housing and homelessness, and helping people with health, nutrition, and other things that they need to have a stable home beyond just four walls and a roof.
Yeah, and then we also, within the CDBG, we do have a very active minor home repair program to keep the housing stock and the homes. And most of these are actually seniors that we assist in our home repair program and keep them able to live in their own home as long as they want to.
Do you evaluate the eligibility of recipients for? So in this case, you mentioned a minor repair program for homeowners. I assume they're low income homeowners. You also mentioned a few minutes ago the senior nutrition program. Are there eligibility requirements for the end users, for the consumers who receive these services? And if so, do you monitor that to make sure that they're all eligible recipients?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah, absolutely. The CDBG funds that we use absolutely require what they call low mod or lower moderate income. So we do verify income through the intake process, and so they have to be able to qualify in order to participate in these programs. So absolutely, we do verify and we do monitor that.
And generally as well, Jeff, these eligibilities in our contracts are drawn around this specific population to ensure that we're capturing that population that we're serving specifically for eligibility. If it's a low mod, or for example, the senior nutrition meals, they are seniors and they qualify under the guidelines of what's required of the contract and agreement.
And you mentioned that Department of Housing and Urban Development as one of the major funding sources. It's a federal funding source. Can you give us some examples of maybe funding sources at the state level or some philanthropic sources of funding?
Yeah, so at the state level, it's happened, but that's the main source of funding to serve our homeless response division. So that there's a whole variety of programs like the motel vouchers or the interim housing. So the state does earmark those to be used for that. On the federal side, I have what's called the Emergency Source Grant, which is ESG, and I only get about 700,000 of that from that, but that is something that we can use in interim housing as well. So there's specific uses for the grants and depending on the grant itself. Just recently, Google provided some community grants to help agencies further engaged in the community. And so that's a program that we just initiated with agreements very recently, like within the last couple of months.
And for those of you keeping score at home, I think when Stephanie mentioned HAP, she was talking about HHAP. That's the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Grant Program. And I think that's what Stephanie was mentioning was coming from the state of California.
Thank you very much. That is correct. Yes.
There are a couple of reports and plans that you have to compile every year or at some interval. One of them that I've heard a lot about is the consolidated plan. Can you please enlighten us? What is the consolidated plan?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that HUD requires all their jurisdictions to complete. And the consolidated plan is almost like a 5-year plan. So we're coming at the end of our 2020-2025 plan. And now we're actually working on our 2025-2030 plan. And this is just a roadmap that we ask for our community partners to give us some ideas of how they think we should be spending the federal money. Like, what programs do you think are necessary, or what areas do you think we need to focus on? So currently we're doing a lot of outreach to our agency partners and just the community in general. We actually have a survey for anybody who wants to, and we have a link on our website to be able to do it, but it gives us an idea of what the community is thinking about, like what their priorities are. And we put all that into the CON plan. And again, the CON plan really is a 5-year roadmap of what we think we're going to be using federal funds for. There are 4 federal funds that we work on. CDBG, like I said, is this community development block grant. There is also what we call HOME. HOME we pretty much been using for affordable housing development and also for tenant assistance. Another form of funding is HOPWA. HOPWA is specifically rental assistance for our partners who have and participants who have are living with AIDS or who are HIV positive. And then finally, like I said, ESG, which is we help with interim housing, but we also fund which we call HMIS, which is kind of a database that we collect data for the for HUD, and this is all for programmatic use. And so this con plan is the roadmap to allow us to give an idea to HUD, but also to the community.
And I believe there's a related document called the Annual Action Plan. It's called. And so can you tell us what that is and how that differs?
Sure. Yeah. So based on the consolidated plan, it gives us, like, again, the roadmap. And then annually we get the allocations, appropriations from HUD. The annual action plan we complete in the spring for the next fiscal year. So we'll be working on the annual action plan coming up in January and February, and we'll go to council in April and submit it to HUD. This specifically tells HUD the specific programs that we'll be spending the appropriations for that year, and it'll only be for that year. And then we come back at the end of the summer and we file what's called the CAPER, which is the Comprehensive Annual. It's like a performance evaluation report. And so we come back and we do evaluate, how did we do last year? Did we serve the people we wanted to serve? How did we spend the money? Did we spend the money correctly? We do kind of a check-in, and that's the CAPER. So that's kind of a full cycle of what the reporting is for HUD. And this is all based, again, on the con plan. So it all is interconnected.
So Jeff, I want to also share, to go back on Stephanie's last insight on HMIS. It's our health management information system that we utilize, and it's primarily to collect and store and analyze, evaluate health-related data from all the programs that we serve through the county, as well as within our own internal agency for national administrative levels. So that's what HMIS stands for.
Got it. Thanks for that clarification, Renee. How does an organization go about working with San Jose, applying for grants, finding out about grant opportunities?
Yeah, we recognize that's a challenge for some of our agency partners who are not in the loop of it. We typically will do on a 2-year cycle, we'll go what's called a notice of funding availability. We shorten it with, of course, the acronym of NOFA, but this goes out to the public and to our community partners and say, hey, partners, we have money available. Give us an idea of how you want to spend that money by programs. And so this is, like, for example, our public service. This is where POSO, who does our senior nutrition, they've completed an application and filed it in 2 years ago. And so we were able to get them, and then they are now serving senior nutrition. So there is a process for our agency partners to come in to apply. Much like POSO did for senior nutrition. And again, we've had it like in a 2-year cycle. So the next one won't be this year, but the next NOFA will be actually next January, December, January.
And what we try to do with the NOFA is also notify our agency partners through an email blast to let them know that funding is available for programs and that they're able to apply and submit their application for review and processing.
And then we also like to do is, and something we did the last go around, is offer workshops just to anybody and say, hey, this is what's involved. This is what's required. This is what the city needs if you're filling an application. Because we know that some of the agencies never filled out an application to get federal funding for a program. So we really try to get these workshops as an educational tool for our partners. One of the new, like I said, smaller agencies, Vivo, it was their first time. They attended one of the workshops, filled out, we were able to help them out, and they were provided with a $50,000 grant to do neighborhood engagement in the Vietnamese community. So
POSO applied for a grant, they were awarded a grant. How much were they awarded, and for what purpose are they using it?
So POSOS is one of our local grassroots organizations, nonprofits here. and they primarily serve the elderly community, senior citizens, to provide food delivery, whether they're hot meals or frozen meals. They've been doing it with the city of San Jose for over about 5 years already. When they applied initially for the NOFA, they were awarded a dollar amount of about 200K. However, recently this year, there was a transition. One of our organizations, other organizations that were supporting meal services was closing their division. And because POSOS was open to suggesting to meeting with us collectively to discuss a transition to take on additional clients, we were able to get them additional funding to provide more meals to seniors and some disabled parties that need food that they can't come out of their home or they don't have anyone to prepare meals for them. So they will go through and do an assessment and then deliver meals directly to their home for them to have meals for 7 days, 2 meals a day. And they also, from time to time, will also give the clients, if they do need a ride to the center that they have a center for elderly for classes and things of that nature in the facility, or if they need a ride to an appointment. It's a very good program. They're very supportive and they're always willing and opening to help us with any transitions or support the city needs. And we've been having a really great relationship with them. So we did add additional funding for more clients. So now they're about $585,000 for the fiscal year, and they're doing quite well and they are growing.
Oh, that's great. Very interesting. So it sounds like POSO serves our elderly residents throughout the community and not just Portuguese residents, despite the name of the organization.
Yeah, correct. We, like I said, we had two partners initially, but one of our partners kind of ended direct services. They were going in another direction. And POSO was fantastic. They stepped in and they are now servicing our participants that were served from another agency. So they're our sole agency that services all our seniors for nutrition. One of the other benefits of the senior nutrition is a wellness check. They go in, the drivers really get to know our seniors. And so it's kind of nice. It's not just dropping off the meals. They actually sit in there and they visit with our seniors and they just make sure that everything's okay. And it's just an added benefit that this agency provides on top of the ride share that they give to appointments and to the POSO center. So it's just been a really lovely partnership with POSO.
Speaking with Elsa with the POSOS program manager, they do cultivate those relationships with their clientele. And, some of the elderly community do not have any family around. So it's really important for them to connect with them and make them feel like they're part of the family and provide that to them to give them comfort as well. So they're really, really pushing to continue to be there for their seniors and to support them with all their services they provide.
So senior nutrition is not technically a housing program, and yet it is, because we're making sure that our seniors are safe and secure in their homes and that they're fed. And it's a really great way of using our public service funds in CDBG.
And for anyone out there who would like a grant for the organization, is thinking about starting up a program that might be funded by grants, can they go to our website and can find out more about the funding sources and how to apply? Is there a place on the housing department website where people can go?
There actually is. They're on broad terms, but and my email is also on that page too. And I've received inquiries from agencies because they went through our website and said, "Oh, let me contact her and she can give me some more information." So I welcome that. If they want to go in and visit and email, I am happy to answer any questions.
All right, that's great. I'll be sure to include a link to the grants page. So Stephanie and Renee, thank you so much for joining us. Are there any other important comments, notes, observations about the grants program that you'd like to add?
No, but I do want to emphasize again, because we were right in the middle of con plan season and putting our 5-year consolidated plan together, that I welcome agency partners or just public in general to go to the survey and let us know how you feel. Where should we be spending our money? Where should we be concentrating our efforts? Your input is extremely welcomed and desired. So that's about it for me. Anything else for you, Renee?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, being part of this work in general in the grants team is kind of rewarding and fulfilling because We're providing services to the community for their needs, whether it's in-shelter population, supportive services, rental assistance, as well as providing food meal services and just connecting with the community to ensure them that we are there for them.
Again, Stephanie and Renee, thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Dwellings, the City of San Jose Housing Department podcast. Our theme music is Speed City, composed and performed by Attain Charles. Thanks to San Jose Jazz for letting us use their music. If you like the show, please subscribe and share with your friends and family. If you're looking for more ways to help address housing and homelessness issues in San Jose, please check out the show notes. You can follow the Housing Department on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SJ City Housing. And if you have questions or comments about today's episode, please send them to housingcoms@sanjoseca.gov. The artwork on our website was created by Chelsea Palacio. Dwellings is produced by me, Jeff Scott, and Jose Chavez of the Housing Department.